Rebel Without a Cause is today's review, and just about 70 years onward, I think it remains kind of the ultimate movie of teenage angst, teenage disillusionment, teenage rebellion, and regardless of the generation, I think it's going to find viewers, particularly teenagers, of course, since it is a teenage film, and it's timeless in what it brings to the story. I mean, it is obviously, at least at the time, a contemporary movie about contemporary issues, but these are just eternal issues that every youth is going to confront in one way or another in some form during their adolescence. So it's accessible in that way. It's accessible because it's not necessarily abstract about it. It's fairly upfront about what the characters in this film are dealing with, and it's all pretty much on the surface. Though I mean, of course, you can dig a little deeper and find further treasures, which is just the best kind of movie, right? But it's accessible in that way, so that a teenage viewer could very much enjoy and respond to this, and it's a decently paced movie for the time, I would say. So I mean, you got to give youths credit for being able to endure something longer than a TikTok video, I guess. But generation after generation, it finds viewers, and they respond pretty strongly to it. And of course, I mean, another reason is James Dean. You always want to know what this James Dean guy is about. He's like, his very visage is just that of like pure Americana, just oozing with charm and cool, and you want to know what this guy's about. You want to seek out his superb but unfortunately very limited filmography. And this had he had already died by the time this came out. Probably, though maybe not his most acclaimed of roles, like his other films, East of Eden and Giant, he was nominated for an Oscar for. This one he was not. But I mean, I would make the argument that it remains the most popular, most enduring, and probably the most culturally relevant. So people are attracted to that. People want to know what goes on in the world of James Dean. I guess they want to see this movie just for that. And you may have any number of ideas going into the movie what that might contain. I sure did when I first saw the movie. I first saw the movie when I was a teenager because I fit the criteria for all of that, and I'm sure many others did. So I would imagine it was on VHS at the time. Real crappy pan and scan version of the movie, and now I've watched it again, a 4K remaster, widescreen, obviously. It's been restored magnificently, looks terrific, and it's just it's a hell of a thing. Revisiting this movie all those years later, I had not seen it since then. So I saw it when I was a teenager. Now I'm seeing it as an adult, and that's kind of a wild thing because the world sure is different when you're a teenager, and that's kind of what it is exploring here. The troubles of a teenager don't really amount to all that much in the greater scheme of things. You think of the scene in the planetarium. The world is alone. The world will come to an end, and mankind will have no significance in the greater scheme of things, which you relate to the time as a teenager. But at the same time, it means everything. There is nothing more urgent than the here and now. He's arguing with his father about trying to figure out what to do. It's like, I can't wait 10 years. The father's like, you just wait 10 years. You'll think this is all silly. So that's, a very powerful theme that it deals with in this urgency of youth and confronting this sense of honor that really only kind of bring upon yourself in a way. But poor old Jimmy Stark, who Dean plays, he's struggling with all that. I mean, when we first meet him, he's completely loaded. He's drunk, brought to the police station, and that's kind of how we set up the whole movie in this incredible opening sequence, which I hadn't really remembered that this is such an extended sequence. This is a good like 20 minutes of the movie where we kind of set everything up. We have all our characters within the police station where we meet them. We meet uh, Jim Stark. We meet Judy, played by Natalie Wood, and of course we meet Plato, nickname, played by Sal Mineo. And their worlds have collided here. They don't realize it quite yet, but things are going to get really intense between this trio, and they are going to emerge out of this as this iconic trio of characters by the end of the movie, and they're dealing with their things, of course. I mean, with Jim, it's about he's the troubled teen, always getting in fights at school, trying to maintain that sense of honor, and he's directionless because I mean obviously the famous line where his parents are fighting with each other. You're tearing me apart. His voice isn't that crackly, but you get the idea. But yeah, you say one thing, he says another thing, and you go back and forth, and you switch it around. So yeah, he has no guidance in life. He has no one to really look to as a masculine figure in his life. His father is very much emasculated by his mother and his grandmother too. So I mean, again, and it's very kind of on the nose with that. You've seen a later scene where he's like, cleaning up a mess in the hallway, and he's wearing the apron, like he can barely look at his father like that, and he just so desperately wants some kind of direction, but he can't get it. His father's too wishy-washy, and the Judy character struggling with her father as well, and how she's this would be kind of the subtlety of the film, but obviously she seems to be promiscuous, riding in cars with boys, I guess, and her father can't really grasp this new version of his daughter that is a sexual being, and some kind of incestuous theme going on with the movie where if he can't see her as a child to provide for, then the only way he can see her is as a woman, and he doesn't want to deal with that. He doesn't want to deal with her. He cannot grasp this, and she's confused and hurt by this. And of course, Sal Mineo, Plato, he has no parents whatsoever. They've split. They leave him alone with his maid, housekeeper, and he has no direction whatsoever. He has no parental figures. He's completely lost, and he's the character that suffers the most and is the most lost. And it doesn't go too far without saying that very clearly is this is a gay character, which I mean they couldn't outright say. I mean it's obvious enough, with the picture of Alan Ladd in his locker. Oh no, he likes his hair. He wants his hair to look that way, right? Nothing gay about that. No, the way he like longingly looks at Jim and all that. So there's that, but it's in the cosmic aligning of the stars that these three lives intertwine, and they affect each other significantly. And this all takes place within the course of a day, which, I mean, I guess there's some criticism about that. That's not too realistic. Probably would have been more realistic if it took place, over the course of, I don't know, a few days, a few weeks, I mean, what does it really matter? It's more dramatic taking place within a 24-hour period, I think. And most agree, obviously. I'm not like standing up for like, yes, this is how it is, but no. Um, when they cross their paths, they do confront their problems, and an interesting thing happens where they do kind of form this family unit all on their own. And Jim, he's kind of forced into this paternal role that he has no uh, experience in. He has no uh, framework to help this kid who's very obviously lost, who's in deep trouble. Plato, uh, and what unfolds is tragedy. I mean, spoilers, but yeah, Plato gets gunned down by the pigs. It's quite sad. But these are characters who long for a place to fit in, and whatever's going on with their peers and the other teenage delinquents. I mean, they feel like they are outsiders, and you do kind of wonder. I mean, there's that great scene with the game of Chicky Run, which is kind of the iconic scene where the leader of the gang, Buzz, he gets killed, but before that he's like, Jimmy, I like you. You're an okay guy. He's like, why are we doing this then? You gotta do something. Which, I mean, I guess it's just directionless youth, which it's a powerful thing, and a powerful feeling that an audience can respond to. But it's so weird watching it all these years later. And you don't, you know, I mean, in any case, we as the audience, we're the observer. So we might not 100% relate to the characters. There are fragments, elements to one degree or another where we, do, very much do. But is it to the teenage characters, or if we're older, do we relate to the parents? Well, not really. Um, for one thing, they're less of an element, a spotlight than the teenagers. Obviously, arguably the biggest role of the parents is Jim's parents. Jim's father is Thurston Howell, by the way, from Gilligan's Island, which is pretty cool. It's not that you really relate to him, but you do feel that the conclusion he reaches at the end, it's satisfying that he does recognize something in his son that makes him want to be more of this figure that he can rely on. I guess. I mean, it ties it up pretty neat and tidy, but you can buy it, you can accept it. But I guess Sal Mineo had to die for that to happen, unfortunately. Which, I mean, probably an issue of criticism for today would be 1955 onwards. It's like anytime you have any gay character, they have to die, right? So I mean, even if it is ambiguous, such as with this film, but I do think it earns its conclusion, and it's, I don't know, somewhat happy ending. Because I mean, regardless of whatever themes it explores, or anything like that, I mean, it's just a very well made drama, with lots of really engaging scenes of tension in it. I mean, like the the knife fight scene outside the observatory. I mean, that's a really really good scene even by today's standards. The Chicky Run, and the whole standoff with Plato and the police at the end. I mean, it's so well done, and it really does draw you in, and it keeps that tension. So just on any kind of technical level, this is an excellently made film, and I guess originally they had kind of intended it to be more of a B movie, like any other, whatever, Blackboard Jungle. Could you call that a B movie? I don't know, but one of the delinquent youth movies that don't really care about the characters, that don't really see them as real complicated people, just kind of a cheap thrill kind of thing. But because of James Dean's success with East of Eden, they kind of brought a bigger budget to it, made it in color. It was intended to be in black and white, and heightened the material a little bit, which was one of the greatest decisions in Hollywood history, because we came out this iconic film that really does see something in its characters, really does explore them, and sees them as people worth exploring, whether they're delinquent youths or not, which is great. And I mean, I guess you would owe a great deal of that to James Dean and the James Dean appeal, which seemed, this meteoric overnight rise in popularity, to icondom or iconhood, or however you want to put it. He's excellent in the film. What can I say that hasn't been said by a million people? He's like he's an alien compared to everyone else in this film. He's just so sure of himself as an actor, but unsure at the same time. It's a weird thing. It's a weird magnetism that he's able to provoke, and everything seems so calculated and improvised at the same time. And he has like this, Brando-ish qualities. Was it the Kowalski method of acting, where it's like this naturalistic, cool kind of thing? He's just spectacular, and he just signaled this shift in what we perceive the leading man to be. Because especially, if you are a young and impressionable man, you do kind of confront this issue, which, it happens with every young man. What does it mean to be a man? What is, masculinity, right? He kind of showed that you could be a sensitive type of masculine. You know what I mean? Where he did have this sense of honor, however skewed it may have been, but he wasn't really looking for trouble. But if it did come upon him, he would defend himself, and he'd defend the weaker, like with Plato. So there is something to be said about that. I think whatever a real man is, you know what I mean. A real man would sometimes question himself. He would sometimes ask others for help and guidance. He would want to do the right thing eventually, but he would help and care for others who are less fortunate. And of course, this isn't just coming out of the air. This is in so many ways explicitly expressed in the movie. In the scene with him and Natalie Wood, where she declares her love for him, and her realization of that, I think, kind of coincides with us as a collective audience falling in love with this figure, this James Dean fellow. So, I mean, being a man, being masculine is not, the general perception of closing off your feelings, being unfeeling. No, it's exploring your feelings, figuring out what they mean, figuring out how you can help others with them. So, I mean, that would be, I don't know, like an example of a positive type of masculinity, which we do actually, we kind of rarely see that. I mean, maybe we've reverted back a little bit into whatever this perception in media and in real life is. So it kind of makes that all the more special, his performance here in this kind of masculine but sensitive role. I mean, really, him and Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. I guess the two prime examples of some, manly man, but still sensitive and caring. That's something to think on, I guess. But we see that in the conclusion of the film, and his desperate attempt to save his friend, basically, and even his father. He realizes he did everything a man could do, right? But unfortunately, didn't work out. Do you think the world will end at night? No, at dawn. Watching this is like, it really does speak to acting as an art form. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this. It really doesn't. I don't really know what else to praise about the performance. I mean, you just got to watch it. I mean, I'm sure others can analyze it a lot better, but it's incredible. It really is. Which is not to devalue the rest of the cast. Sal Mineo is incredible too, in his own way. Natalie Wood, also great. They're both nominated for Oscars. He wasn't. Again, he wasn't. He wasn't nominated for this film somehow. But obviously, this is James Dean's movie. This is the piece of James Dean iconography that most people will remember him for. But it couldn't work without everyone else. I mean, really, they say there's no such thing as a small performance, only small actors, which is true. And this trio, much like in the film where it is this aligning of the stars, it's very much behind the scenes in alignment of the stars, where it just wouldn't be as good, as iconic, as memorable without these three. I mean, there's something so attractive about these three, and obviously in real life, there's the tragedy behind them all, which kind of makes it all the more precious. This is a precious little piece of filmmaking, of Hollywood, of acting, of characterization, that if not for maybe the real life tragic happenings, maybe we wouldn't value it quite as much. But these characters, they're very engaging, and you get to this point where they're hiding out at the ending, and I guess in a way, they even kind of revert to this childhood play imaginary kind of thing. They're literally like playing house right at the end, maybe because I mean they just can't see themselves moving forward in a way, which is a tragic thing to think about, a tragic real life occurrence that they did not move forward, didn't become old. I've doubled my life since watching this movie for the first time. Now seeing it again, that's an incredible thing. That's an incredible privilege, and it is a privilege to be able to revisit a classic movie such as this, a great movie such as this, and see it in somewhat of the same light you originally did, but in a new light as an older and hopefully wiser person. But yeah, that's my review. Rebel Without a Cause. By any chance you haven't seen it, absolutely check it out. It's one of the all-time greats. Well, thank you very much for watching. Be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, I'll see you later.